Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be on an editing tutorial and it's going to be on some fashion colouring. I have had a request already for this particular photograph, which is currently posted on my Instagram, and the colouring that was associated with that. So I've been requested to do an editing tutorial for that, so I thought I would go ahead and do one tonight. Let's get straight into it, and the first thing is to do your basic editing. So I have done some dodging and burning on this particular photo already, and you can see the difference that that's sort of made there. Just kind of improve some of the shadows there. The first step we're going to make is adding a solid color in the adjustment layers down here. So the solid color is going to be 0B1845. So just a dark blue color, and we're going to set this layer to lighten at 26%. So that's just filling in the shadows with like a blue tone. And you guys know that I love to do this with a lot of my photos. I think it just automatically gives it a bit of a retro feel and kind of makes it a little bit moodier. The next step we're going to do is a curves adjustment layer. And I'm just going to map out a few points here. You guys don't need to do the exact same ones that I'm doing because this will depend on the brightness and contrast of your photo already. But I'm just going to sort of create an S-curve. Okay, so we're just going to do an S-curve like that. We're just leaving the shadows a little bit more grey and a little bit lifted, and then just giving the image overall a little bit more brightness with the curves layer. Next step will be to add a photo filter in adjustment layers. And we're going to choose just the colour yellow, which will be under this. And we're going to leave that set to 25% density. But we are going to choose the opacity to be brought down to about 54%. Just to kind of bring that down a little bit. And you can see that's added a lot more warmth to the image overall. And it's also really improved the look of her skin tone and given it a bit more of a glow. The next step will be a selective color through adjustment layers. And we're going to make a few adjustments just to the whites, neutrals and blacks. These are where I usually make most of my adjustments because it will show up probably the most in the image. So with whites, we're going to move cyan to +1. Magenta, we're also going to move to +1. Yellow, we're going to move to -4. We're just going to take off the edge of that yellow in the highlights of the image. And we're going to leave black at 0. Then we'll go to neutrals. Cyan, I'm going to move to -1 just to get rid of a little bit of the blue in the mid-tones. Magenta will move to +2. It's going to give a little bit more of a pink feel. And then yellow and black will leave at 0. Then blacks, we will make a few adjustments. So the first one, we will move cyan to -2 just to get rid of a bit of the blue in the shadows because it was looking a little bit too blue at times. And magenta will move to +2. Bring a bit more pink back into the image in the shadows. And then we'll move yellow to -2 because we want that to stand out. And that's selective color done. So you can see the difference that's made just by one layer. We've added a lot more pink into the image, but you can see the blue is still kind of filling in the shadows there and giving that cool retro effect. The next layer we're going to add is a black and white layer. And for this one, I'm going to set this layer to luminosity. So it goes onto the coloring of the image and it doesn't actually just give us a black and white image overall. So you can use the black and white layer to adjust certain midtones and shadows in the image. So we're going to just work with the yellows at the moment because that'll be with the skin tone. You can see that that's going to make a big difference if we move that slider. So I'm going to move that up to 88 just to brighten up the skin tone a little bit there. And that's all we're going to need to do for that layer. So the next layer is going to be a luminosity mask. So for those that haven't seen some of my previous tutorials, you just go into channels and hold down Control and click on RGB. you can see that the selection has grabbed all the parts of the image that are the brightest. So we're going to go back to layers now and then go to adjustment layers and click on levels. And now we can move the sliders across, and it's only going to do it to certain parts of the image, to the brightest parts, which is good because that's what we want. We're going to just make those highlights even stronger now. So I'm just going to move this one across to 249. And I'm going to move the shadows across to 6. And then the midtones we're going to move to 1.08. So we've just given the image a little bit more brightness and contrast there. Now for this part, I'm going to work on a certain part of the image because as you can see, her legs are not quite the same tone as the top of her body, and that's because they're in a different lighting, they're in the shadows, so it's looking a lot darker down there. We're just going to change that and tone it a little bit more by bringing up another black and white adjustment layer. And this time we're going to add onto the mask. So this part here, this little white box, we're going to make sure we're clicking on that. So then we're going to set this layer to color and 22% fill. So it's going to desaturate part of the image, but we're now going to use a gradient from this side of the panel, making sure that it's white to black, and we're going to drag that up. So you can see that's made a difference on her legs there. They're not as saturated now. I'm just going to show you guys there. They're definitely not as saturated. They're a little bit more in with the rest of the skin tone now and not looking so orange. And then as the finishing touch, I'm just going to put some grain over the image. So I've been doing this lately by holding down Alt on the keyboard and clicking on New Layer. It's just by basically using a grey layer. We need to set this to either soft light or overlay. I'm going to set this one to overlay because I want the grain to be quite strong. And then we click this box here, fill with overlay neutral color, 50% grey. And OK. So now we've got our grey layer over here set to overlay. And I'm going to go to filter, noise, and then add noise. And it should be right at about 11 or 12% at the moment. And make sure that monochromatic is checked, because sometimes uniform can be just too colored and too noisy. So I'm just going to use monochromatic. And then we're going to set the fill on this to 77% to bring it down a little bit. So I'm going to zoom in and show you guys the grain. Because we're going to make one last step here, and we're going to go to filter, blur, and then blur. And it's just softened the noise by doing that. So you can see that's just made a little bit of a difference there. It's more like a film grain now. And I'll show you guys what it looks like without the grain. And that's what it looks like with the grain. So I'm going to zoom back out and show you guys before and after, because that is pretty much the end of the tutorial. So this is the before image and this is the after image. So it's a pretty easy tutorial. It doesn't take too long to do, and it's really cool for, especially I've found on overcast images, this toning seems to work quite well. So I definitely recommend experimenting with it and seeing how you go on your own photos. But thank you guys so much for watching. If there's any other requests that you'd like me to do through editing tutorials or even photography videos, please be sure to put them in the comment section below. And all the gear that I use, all my photography gear and tools is all listed in the description box below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please do. And I'll see you next time. Bye!